listening.
Well, now we'd like to start with you introducing yourself and telling us who you are and what you do.
Great to be here. Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Kelvin Bergman. I'm a family and emergency physician, and I'm the co-founder of Global Ultrasound Institute. We're an education and training company around point-of-care ultrasound. And we've been training healthcare providers here in Kenya, and we're the education and training partner for this Gates-funded project with Kenyatta University and the Butterfly Network.
Okay, so there was all this, previously, or rather throughout the day, we've listened to the point of care ultrasound. Why exactly do we refer to it as point of care ultrasound?
It's a great question. Ultrasounds, many people know what that is, and they have an image in their mind of what an ultrasound is, and maybe they've even had one in a hospital somewhere. Point of care ultrasound is a newer take on that, and technology has been able to shrink down these machines so that they're the size of an electric shaver and plug into your smartphone, or maybe the size of a laptop computer. And because of the portability, you're actually able to bring those to the bedside, to the point of care, so that any provider, not a sonographer, not a radiologist or radiographer, but actually a nurse midwife, a family physician, an obstetrician, anyone who's doing the clinical care, they themselves are the ones who do the scanning and interpret it. So that's what's really new about this, is that the clinicians themselves are doing the scanning and interpretation. And it's kind of like a quick look at what's going on inside the patient. So already those clinicians are doing their best to make their own assessments. They use their hands, they listen with a stethoscope, they tap with their fingers to try to figure out what's going on. Now, with point of care ultrasound, they're actually able to look inside the body and just see what's going on. That's a little bit easier said than done. You need a little bit of training and a little bit of practice and to get good at it. And so that's what we do, and that's what we're here for.
So talk to us about the Butterfly IQ ultrasound for, the maternal health care.
Absolutely. Yeah, Butterfly IQ is a wonderful advance. They found a way to put ultrasound onto a silicone chip, so a solid state device. And so that means you don't need to have different probes. Usually in ultrasound, based on what you're scanning, it requires different types of probes, and they've been able to put it all on one probe to scan the entire body from head to toe. And in particular for this project, we're focusing on maternal health, antenatal health. And it is really a wonderful device with the proper training to be able to just scan patients who are in antenatal clinic, their first, second, third trimester, maybe they're in labor, and get clinical answers right then and there at the bedside in real time. So is this a twin pregnancy? Is this a singleton? Is this a viable pregnancy? Is the placenta in a favorable position? Is there enough fluid inside of the uterus? So is the head down, or is it breached? Those are really the fundamental questions as a healthcare provider to know what the proper thing is to do with the patient. And so those are the specific applications that we're teaching as Global Ultrasound Institute here today at Kenyatta University.
Thank you very much. Now, to have an advancement in a technological device meant to aid a certain, function, the previous, because there are also ultrasounds there before the Butterfly IQ device was, was come up with, right? So, what sets the difference between, the Butterfly IQ Plus device and the pre-existing ultrasound machines that have been there before?
So I think the three biggest advancements of the Butterfly are, number one, that they found a way to put everything on one probe to scan the body. So it's much more convenient and much more portable. Two, the fact that they were able to kind of put it all on a silicon chip, and so that it's a little more durable and much less expensive. And that's the third thing, is that the price point is way less than what other ultrasounds are, and their quality is still very, very good. So that's their innovation.
Thank you very much for that response. What I meant to you to address was, I mean, what are those things that you couldn't be able to see, rather, when you observe the fetus growing and all those factors that lead to the correct development of the fetus just to be delivered or rather given birth to as a healthy baby? Was there things that you couldn't identify in the previous pre-existing ultrasounds that we can now get to see under the Butterfly IQ Plus?
I think the biggest advance with this is the fact that it's going to be so widely available and so accessible. It's not that it's necessarily a higher resolution than older ultrasounds, or that you can somehow see some microscopic areas of the pregnancy that we couldn't appreciate before. It's not that at all. It's that we now have a device that we can really make great decisions on, that's very inexpensive and affordable, and it's now going to be in 8 different counties in Kenya in the hands of 500 different healthcare providers. The number of sonographers and accessibility of ultrasound has really hampered antenatal care in Kenya, especially in these counties that were identified by the World Health Organization, and allowing more access to just ultrasound, just even some kind of ultrasound, is going to improve patient care. I think that's really their biggest advance.
Okay, now that we're talking about maternal care, there's been reports in Kenya alone of so many maternal deaths, and all these antenatal, all those things. I think you really understand what I'm talking about. What are some of the conditions that we can identify on an ultrasound that brings in the importance of why we need to perform these ultrasounds?
Yeah, great question. So I think a couple of big ones. So antenatal hemorrhage and postpartum hemorrhage are the leading causes of maternal death here in Kenya and throughout Africa. And one of the causes of antenatal hemorrhage is placenta previa. And that's something that actually they're teaching right now. This session is on exactly that, of how to identify exactly where the placenta is and if it is overlying the cervix. Because if the placenta is overlying the cervix at the time of delivery, there's going to be a profound amount of bleeding. And so identifying those patients earlier so that they don't go into labor and that they have a planned C-section at a referral center, that will save lives, no doubt about it. Another use case would be just identifying multiple gestations. If you have a twin pregnancy, you have triplets or quadruplets even, identifying that earlier is going to save lives, because those are by definition higher risk deliveries. Those are higher risk, and they need to be at a higher level of care with obstetricians and neonatologists, hopefully, to care for the children. So many times without an ultrasound, you just don't know, and hey, there's a baby coming out, and oh my gosh, there's another one, and maybe you're at a health center and you're in a difficult situation. And so that would be another use case. Also, there's, especially around any time in pregnancy, there's the possibility of miscarriage or fetal demise, and that's especially, it's horrible at any time, but especially painful at the very end of pregnancy, or around the labor period. And so identifying fetal bradycardia and fetal cardiac distress is something that is able to be done with this handheld ultrasound, and allowing for that better monitoring will be a key to their clinical team. Does this patient need an assisted delivery? Do they need to go to theater for a C-section, or can they just continue to labor vaginally? So those are a few of the use cases. And so I think just in general, having more of an early upstream diagnosis and picking out some of those people who are going to be high risk, placenta previa, multiple gestations, abnormal fetal cardiac activity, that in and of itself, there's no doubt about it, is going to save lives in Kenya.
Let's talk about how early the ultrasound should be performed, because I think, we've had these, baby showers where people could be doing ultrasound for their gender reveal only. How early should these people, or rather these expectant mothers, go for these ultrasounds?
Gender, or just when should they get an ultrasound?
Yeah.
So the World Health Organization has a recommendation that every mother should have, expectant mother should have an ultrasound by 24 weeks. And then there's also a recommendation here from the Kenyan government for a second ultrasound sometime in the third trimester. So those are the recommendations. And I don't know the exact percentages, but I know that it's certainly far from universal that expectant mothers, or every single one of them, are complying with those recommendations. I think it's far from that. And the more that we're able to get some level of ultrasound and therefore knowledge into what's going on in the pregnancy, the more chance that we're going to have to identify those high-risk people and route them to the appropriate referral and the appropriate care that they need to eventually reduce maternal mortality.
Right. Now let's talk about this back to the butterfly IQ device. We've seen you training the healthcare providers, and I've seen some of the mothers, expectant mothers, rather. So is it to say that this training is for everybody, and someone can actually understand? There is this medical terminologies which someone could be saying, I wouldn't understand, how I wouldn't interpret what the results are coming from this device. Is it for everyone, and how long do they need the training should go for them to actually operate this device?
Yeah, it's a great question. So luckily this device is quite intuitive, and it's got a wonderful, easily understandable design to it. And it's just a matter of plugging the device into a smartphone, and then it's operated through an app, just like any other app that would be on your smartphone. In terms of the training and the knowledge, there's the initial training that we're doing now this week, and we take great pains and think a lot about how we can take a topic that can be somewhat complicated and make it more accessible and readily understandable to any healthcare provider. And we've have 2 days of classroom teaching here, Monday and Tuesday this week. And then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are going to be the clinical times where, with their instructors, they're going to go to 5 different clinical sites in Kiambu and scan actual patients. There'll be educational scans and training scans for them, for these healthcare providers, but they're going to get more repetition and feel more and more comfortable with how to do the scans. And then hopefully by the end of the week, they will have had 20 different scans of each thing that we're teaching them, which is 5 different things, so 100 different scans in a week. And when they go back to their county facilities, they'll feel quite comfortable and more confident and hopefully competent in order to be able to perform this. The more, just like anything in medicine, the more you do it, the more you feel comfortable with it and the more you learn as you go. But this is a foundational training that will allow them to do the basic scanning and ask and answer those basic questions. So we've tried to, as much as possible, demystify a lot of the things around this and make it more accessible to healthcare providers. And most of these providers are nurse midwives and clinical officers. That's the majority of. Some are family physicians, a few obstetricians, but the focus of the grant was frontline healthcare providers at level 2, 3, 4, 5 facilities here in rural Kenya.
Okay, let's talk about the numbers now of the trainees and people you've been able to train. I've seen a number of up to 500 practitioners in Kenya right now. Are we talking about more worldwide, and what exactly is the big dream for the Institute and Butterfly?
So this is a 1,000 probe project, and 500 will be deployed here in Kenya. And then another 500 are going to be deployed in South Africa in the spring of 2023. And this was all Gates funded, and this tripartite or the partnership between Kenyatta University and Butterfly and ourselves, and then we have other partners in South Africa. So in terms of Global Ultrasound Institute, we've trained thousands of healthcare providers in many countries around the globe. And we're still a fairly young organization. We've only been around for about 3.5 years, and we're growing a lot. There's a lot to do, because I feel like in many ways the healthcare workforce in many different countries, and particularly in Africa, needs to be retooled in this way to be able to incorporate this technology in the work that they're already doing. So if you're, and not just in obstetric ultrasound, so ultrasound can be used anywhere on the body to make diagnoses for like pneumonia or heart failure or any, rotator cuff tear or any swelling or effusion around the knees or hips, kidney stones, appendicitis, many different diagnoses, even a retinal detachment in the eye or bleeding in the eye. And it can also be used to guide procedures and make them safer and more successful. So if you've ever had an injection or an aspiration of a joint or taking fluid out of somewhere, you can do it under an ultrasound, this exact Butterfly device, and see exactly where your needle is going and be much more precise and have less chance of damaging any surrounding tissues. So it's become the standard of care for doing procedures in many parts of the world. Anyway, so since there's a lot of room for growth and there's a lot of healthcare providers in the world, we've got a lot of work to do. So our big goal is to just raise the awareness of this technology, try to get it in the hands of as many healthcare providers as possible, specifically the ones who are frontline, who are taking care of vulnerable, marginalized patients, particularly in rural areas, and get them access to this training. And so we have an online website with a whole platform, educational platform with family medicine, obstetrics, pediatrics, and it's closed captioned in multiple different languages. And we have the ability for learners to be able to upload their scans to our platform so we can give them feedback. Our whole goal is to basically get healthcare providers just more comfortable with this and have it be part of what they do, kind of baked into their practice of medicine. In order to get that comfort level, feedback is really important. And so we have in-person feedback like we do these sessions, but after we go, we want to continue that relationship and have a longitudinal teaching and mentorship. And so we've tried to put that all in one place for our website, and there's just been thousands and thousands of people who've been learning with us, and we're very, very proud of that, because each one of those health providers is seeing thousands of patients, and so there's a huge impact to this. And so we're working very hard, and we're just so hopeful and excited, because we know through our own lived personal experience as physicians and as healthcare providers the difference that this can make in patient care. Like, I used to practice without having this tool, and now I practice with it. And I just feel like I'm so much of a better provider because I'm so much more confident, because I can actually see it with my own eyes, what's happening inside their body. And not only can I see it with my own eyes, I can show it to them. And so that's a totally different thing. It's one of my very favorite parts of this, is that I can be scanning somebody's heart or scanning someone's pregnancy, and I can just show them, like, yeah, here's the heart, this is where the problem is, or here's the baby, and here's the heartbeat of the baby. And that seeing is, believing and understanding, and it just promotes trust and transparency. And I feel like that gets to like the heart of healthcare, of what it is. Someone's coming in with a problem, and you have been blessed as a provider with more training and experience, but to be able to make that a less opaque experience and a more transparent experience for them just makes it so much more satisfying for both.
You've selected, we've had you mention earlier on today in this exercise, that you've selected 8 counties because of being marginalized and maybe being in the rural areas. So what are some of the challenges that you've encountered as an organization in subordination with other, institutions in delivering these, not only maternal health care, but health care to all these people in those counties specifically?
Well, this is the kickoff training so far, and so this is the first group, the Train the Trainer group of 50 that have come from these different counties. I feel like the biggest barrier from those counties were selected because they were the highest maternal morbidity and mortality in Kenya, and so that's why we selected them. I feel like the healthcare providers that are coming from those counties very much understand without any problem the power of this, and maybe the patients there might be some issues with acceptance. I'm not totally sure, but I feel like what they're dealing with at the county level, with not as much access to healthcare and being able to trying to do their job without excellent tools and backup and referral, is a very difficult task. And that's why for us there are heroes and focus and role models, and we want to empower them as much as humanly possible to be able to do their jobs, which are very, very difficult jobs. So it's one thing to be working in Nairobi with ultrasound down the hallway and multiple specialists around you. It's another thing entirely to be the only healthcare provider for like 100 kilometers with no one around. That's a very, very different kind of experience. And so as an organization, and just me as a human being and a physician, I want as much as possible to support those people and to promote health equity, because there's so much unevenness of distribution of resources in the world. And since it's our company and we try to choose as much as we can, we want to try to support those people first, to just make things better for them. And that's why I went into medicine. That is why I love point of care ultrasound, because it's like an evening. It's something that can just an equalizer, because even somebody in Tata Taveta or Kakamega or in any rural place, they can have access to an ultrasound by their provider, just like I can in San Francisco, or just like you can in Nairobi. Just because they live in a very difficult, harsher place doesn't mean that they should have such vastly different health care. That's just not right. And so we want to be a part of the solution, and we'd like to we want to show them that we see that and that we recognize what they're doing, and we want to really honestly help as much as we can.
Even as we wind up, tell us about the programs offered at the Global Ultrasound Institute and how we plan to upgrade, upscale, the distribution of these Butterfly IQ Plus gadgets.
Yeah, sure. So we, as education and training and software organization, we provide expert education and training in general medicine, acute care medicine, emergency, family medicine, obstetrics, pediatrics, and sports medicine, musculoskeletal. We have new courses that are coming out online on a regular basis. We do in-person trainings all over the world. And we're just going to continue to innovate and evolve and create more and more content in different areas, responding to what people are most interested in. Our next course is going to be about critical care and hospitalized patients. And we've closed captioned all of our content in 4 different languages, and soon is going to be in Arabic and in Mandarin and hopefully Swahili sometime soon. And our hope for the next step is that we can, as much as possible, really localize the educational material. So have there be a Kenyan version of this that really speaks to the realities in Kenya, and even like a Kenyan midwife version of how you deploy this in Kenya as a midwife, because it's quite different as an obstetrician in Nairobi versus what you're going to be doing as a midwife in a very rural area. You're still using maybe the same device, and you're still scanning an obstetric patient, but the way that you apply it and the decision making is somewhat different. So we want, as much as possible, kind of localize that and offer as many things as possible as is in the world, in the house of medicine, and to make it just understandable and get it in a form that is easily accessible to all the learners so that they can use it and use it in their daily practice and treat patients better.
Well, thank you very much, Kelvin Bergman, for having us and giving us all these in-depth insights regarding the Butterfly IQ device that is meant to upscale maternal healthcare delivery to not only Kenyans but expectant mothers globally. That's it from us right here. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Daphne Ori.